Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Miguel Balparda, and for the last decade I worked in some of the largest e-commerce implementations around the globe. Since joining Nexcess, one of the largest e-commerce cloud providers, I've helped maintain and contribute to different open source projects including Magento 2, Shopware 6, and several open source initiatives. Chances are we met somewhere, because I love to travel, and during the last 7 or 8 years I presented different talks in more than 40 countries, mostly around performance, support, and open source software. During this session, I'll be talking about one of the things I like the most, performance and clouds. I'm going to start by going over Shopware 6 system requirements. Shopware 6 uses a quite common LAMP stack, and in our particular case, MariaDB 10.4 as the DB engine. Now, optionally, one can use Redis, Varnish, and Elasticsearch to improve certain parts of the application. For this session, I compiled a suite of tests to try to benchmark Shopware 6 and see how it behaves under heavy load. I define a reproducible user float with a certain number of virtual users visiting the site with a normalized distribution, and compare it to one of the platforms I use the most, Magento 2. We tweak both applications as much as possible to get a better performance, and that includes using Redis for HTTP cache, Varnish for full page cache, Elasticsearch for catalog search and indexing, and some MySQL fine-tuning we have for every service. Now, let's start from the basics. What is capacity testing and why is it important? Quite frequently, merchants and store owners want to know how a store will behave under heavy load, when a bunch of concurrent users are hitting their site and concurrent requests are being made. Capacity testing is the process we have to answer this question. This is also known as load testing in some cases, but in my opinion, capacity testing is a better term to use. By having this information, merchants can plan ahead and downsize or scale their infrastructure during particularly busy times, including TV show appearances and marketing campaigns. In my opinion, and as a tech user, every store should have this information beforehand instead of waiting for their servers to go down in the middle of a campaign. And that is one of the main reasons we have been proactively offering this service to some of our largest customers at Nexcess. So let's get to it. For this test, I used Case 6, one of the leading tools for load and capacity testing, and I tried to replicate a user journey to have a realistic and reproducible metrics. I used the sample data package to emulate the real store, and while the Shopware sample data is not as big as Magento sample data, in my opinion it was sufficient to test a simple and configurable product, a category page, search, and checkout. The user journey started with a request to the homepage, followed by a visit to a category page, and once that category page was loaded, the virtual users headed to a simple product and then added it to cart. Once the add to cart was ready, virtual users searched for a configurable product and visited the product page and added it to cart again. With these two products added to the cart, a last request was made for the checkout page. We started this test with 20 virtual users simultaneously and ramped it up to 50 virtual users in 6 minutes. This is how the Shopware 6 results look like. Like you can see, the max throughput we got was around 34 requests a second. We saw a bunch of HTTP failures, and I think this is mostly around the add to cart action. The average response time for Shopware was less than 200 milliseconds, and the 95% response time was less than 400 milliseconds. Like you can see in the performance overview, we did around 6,000 requests, and the server performance was never degraded. Like you can see, we didn't see any spikes in the response times, meaning this server was performing quite well under heavy load. This is how the same test looks for Magento 2. Again, we use the same servers, sample data, and the same user journey. The max throughput was around 20 requests a second. We saw no HTTP failures. The average response time was around 364 milliseconds, and the 95% response time was around 1 second. Again, you don't see any spike in the response time in the performance chart. The requests we made were around 4,000, and at no point this server was under heavy load. Like you can see, the response time remained pretty much the same both for Magento 2 and Shopware, and that usually means that this server can take some extra load. Now, some of our key findings were that the average Shopware 6 response time was 50% faster. The Shopware 6 max throughput was also 50% higher. The 95% response time for Shopware 6 was around 1/3 of Magento 2. Here is where we saw the biggest difference. And for Shopware 6, we saw around the 10% of HTTP failures, mostly around the add to cart action. Now, in my opinion, these tests are telling us that Shopware 6 can behave or perform better than Magento in certain use cases. And in my opinion, again, there's a lot of space for Shopware 6 in the small, medium segment for the e-commerce landscape. After the Shopware Community Day a couple of weeks ago, I saw an uptick of merchants asking us about Shopware, and I strongly believe Shopware 6 can be a great alternative for a lot of use cases when it comes to small and medium businesses. Magento 2 still shines when it comes to enterprise builds, but I strongly believe Shopware 6 can be a great option for a lot of merchants out there who doesn't want to go to a hosted solution and still want to host their own stuff. Now, this is all I have for this session. I hope you enjoy it, and I think you know where to find me. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn if you have any questions or feedback. And again, thank you for having me today here.